I have written this before, and I say it again with absolute clarity. The words I am are powerful. Whatever you add to them becomes your truth. That is not poetic language. That is spiritual law. And it is time you understood what that law truly means. Most people speak their lives into ruin, not because they are wicked, nor because they lack faith, but because they do not understand the weight of their own naming. They treat words like decoration, when in fact, words are structure. They imagine that their speech is commentary, when in truth, it is command. And the words I am, those two words, are the gateway to every outcome you have ever lived. Each time you say I am, you are stepping into spiritual court, declaring under oath the name by which the law shall recognize you. It does not matter whether you are whispering to yourself or shouting into the wind. The law does not care whether you speak in confidence or in confusion. It cares only that you have spoken. And once spoken, your words are written into the fabric of your being, into the frequency of your world, into the record of your spiritual identity. You may not realize it, but every time you say I am, the law listens, not as a parent listens to a child, but as a judge listens to a statement of record. It does not ask if you are joking. It does not wait to see if you change your mind. The law hears your words and begins to build your life around the name you have given yourself. And what names have you used? How many mornings have you begun with I am tired? How many nights have ended with I am defeated? How many times have you muttered I am unlucky, or I am not ready, or I am always the one who gets left behind? You think you are describing a mood, but you are declaring a fate. I once had a student, a woman of great potential, whose finances remained in chaos no matter how many affirmations she recited. She was doing everything right, yet the results did not appear. One day in conversation, she sighed and said to me, I am always the one holding the short end of the stick. She laughed as she said it, not realizing what she had done. And I stopped her. I said, there, that is your real decree. That is the name you answer to. And until you break it, no affirmation will hold. Because you cannot plant seeds of prosperity in soil poisoned by identity. You cannot override the spiritual contract you have signed with your own mouth. The subconscious does not filter your statements. It does not say, oh, she didn't mean that. It only obeys. It takes every I am as an instruction, a declaration of who you are, and it shapes your experience to match. This is the spiritual law. Whatever you call yourself, you become. Not because you tried, but because the law has no choice but to comply. That is what makes it law. It is not optional. It does not operate according to your feelings. It operates according to your decree. When Moses stood before the burning bush and asked God for his name, the answer came not as a description, but as a declaration. I am that I am. That was not a name to be pronounced. It was a presence to be embodied. It was the eternal identity, the root of all existence. And when you say I am, you are stepping into that same lineage of spiritual authority, not as a god, but as one created in divine order, with the right to name yourself and the responsibility that follows. That is why I warn my students, never say I am sick, even when your body protests. Say instead, I am whole by divine design. Never say, I am poor, even when the bank account is empty. Say instead, I am supplied according to the riches of spirit. Never say, I am lost, even in confusion. Say instead, I am guided by perfect wisdom now. You are not lying when you speak this way. You are naming yourself under a higher jurisdiction. You are choosing truth over appearance, and law follows truth, not fear. You may ask me, but what if I don't feel it? What if I say, I am strong but I feel weak? And I will say to you, the law does not obey feeling, it obeys command. Your feelings are the weather, your word is the structure. Would you dismantle your house every time the sky turns gray? Then do not dismantle your identity every time your emotions shift. Speak what you are under law, not what you feel in passing. There is no spiritual progress until the tongue is brought under discipline. No healing can last if the mouth continues to reopen the wound. No wealth can remain if the speech keeps naming lack. It is not enough to visualize abundance. You must speak it, you must name yourself as one who holds it, and you must do so even when your senses disagree. That is faith. That is alignment. That is law. So I ask you now and answer honestly. What have you been calling yourself? What have you spoken over your own life? Not once, but repeatedly, until your very cells believed it? Have you called yourself broken? Then do not be surprised when your relationships break. Have you called yourself small? Then expect small opportunities. Have you called yourself unlucky? Then expect doors to close before you reach them. But if today, yes today, you change the name, you change the law. You say, I am favored. Say it like it is written in heaven. I am guided. Say it like the stars were waiting for you to remember. I am one with divine order. Say it even if your life looks like disorder, because the name goes first, the evidence follows. That is how manifestation works. It does not begin with asking, it begins with naming. You are not waiting for life to give you a title. Life is waiting for you to speak one. So speak it now. Speak with reverence. Speak with precision. Speak as one who understands. Heaven is not responding to your circumstances. It is responding to your name. And the name you give yourself is the future you live. I have watched with sorrow how people forfeit their good, not because they lack the desire for it, but because they continue to speak as slaves of their feelings. They believe the purpose of speech is to describe what is happening. But the spiritual purpose of speech is not description, it is instruction. You were not given a voice to echo appearances. You were given a voice to override them. This is why I warn so strongly, never speak from a temporary emotion using the eternal phrase, I am. For when you do, you immortalize a passing shadow. You bind your identity to a feeling that had no right to stay. You turn a cloud into a cage. Let me be clear. To say I am angry is not the same as feeling anger. To feel is human. But to name yourself after your feeling is to align with it legally. The law does not know sarcasm. The law does not parse intention. It hears only structure. And when it hears I am, it assumes you are issuing an order. Whether whispered through tears or shouted in jest, it is recorded all the same. So when a person says, I am anxious, the law does not pause to ask, does she mean this temporarily? No, the law begins to construct an identity that matches anxiety. It begins to filter your circumstances to match your statement. You will find yourself encountering more reasons to feel anxious, not because life is against you, but because you spoke as one who is anxious, and the universe obeyed. That is the danger of careless language. That is the danger of using the sacred formula of identity to process emotion. I do not mean you should deny how you feel, but you must learn to speak from truth, not from turbulence. The feeling will pass, but the name you give yourself may remain, etched in the blueprint of your subconscious, repeated in your tone, echoed in your posture, and manifested in your life. Many years ago, a man came to me, desperate for change. He said, "Mrs. Shinn, I keep saying affirmations, but nothing seems to shift. I tell myself I am successful, but deep down, I know I'm not." I looked at him and said, "You are still speaking from feeling, not authority. You are trying to convince yourself, rather than command the law." He had been using "I am" as a wish, not a decree. And the law does not respond to wishes, it responds to structure. There is a vast difference between saying, "I am strong from the pit of despair," and saying, "I feel hopeless." One admits the feeling without binding the identity. The other hands over the reins of your reality to a momentary wave. And I will always instruct you to do the former. Feel what you feel, but name yourself by truth. You are not your sadness. You are not your doubt. You are not your exhaustion. Those are visitors. They are not your name. Your name is chosen by the divine design. Your name is wholeness, favor, strength, alignment, clarity, provision, purpose. But no one can name you in your place. The law waits for your voice. The universe leans in, not to comfort you, but to obey you. I often hear people say things like, "I am such a mess," or "I am always overlooked," or "I am not good enough." And I ask them, who told you to say that? What spirit authorized you to claim that name? What truth have you ever read that gave you permission to curse yourself with such declarations? If the law of God recognizes only your word, then why would you use that word against yourself? It is not your circumstances that bind you. It is your confessions. It is not your past that follows you. It is your mouth. If you wish to break the pattern, you must break the phrasing. Change your words, not as an exercise in optimism, but as an act of spiritual jurisdiction. So when the feeling rises and you are tempted to say, "I am overwhelmed," stop. Say instead, "I am upheld by divine strength." When the day drains you and you want to declare, "I am burnt out," say instead, "I am replenished by the source within me." When fear creeps in and begs you to whisper, "I am afraid," replace it with, "I am anchored in faith now." This is not pretending. This is positioning. You are positioning yourself under truth. You are not lying, you are aligning. And alignment is more powerful than explanation. Because the law does not wait for your feelings to stabilize. It waits for your decree. It does not care how long you've struggled, it cares only for your authority. Speak now, not from the wound, but from the word. Speak as one who knows that naming is sacred. Speak as one who understands that identity is not discovered, it is declared. And if you must speak, speak as one whose words are law. There is a dangerous belief I must dismantle now. The belief that God, the law, or the universe will bypass your words and act upon your intentions instead. That somehow, if you mean well, the law will overlook your language. Let me correct that. The law is not sentimental. The law is precise. It does not respond to your emotional state. It responds to your spoken identity. This is why so many people live in contradiction. They pray for change but speak decay. They visualize wholeness but declare brokenness. They desire abundance but name themselves broke at every opportunity. And when nothing shifts, they assume God is distant or that they have been forgotten. But no, they have simply violated the alignment of the law. The subconscious is a loyal executor. It does not edit your words. It does not examine your trauma. It does not stop to ask what you meant. It builds according to the name you gave it. And it builds in silence, without ceremony, without delay, and without mercy. If you speak failure, it prepares failure. If you speak lack, it prepares limitation. If you speak unworthiness, it prepares rejection. Not because it hates you, but because it was instructed to do so. When you say, "I am overwhelmed," the law does not consider whether it is a temporary feeling. It receives it as a template. When you say, "I am cursed," it does not consult your history. It receives it as law. When you say, "I am not the kind of person who gets chosen," the field arranges itself to make that true. Not because you are unworthy, but because you said so. Words do not reflect your reality. They generate it. And "I am" is not reflective language. It is creative force. That is why it is the most dangerous phrase in existence when used carelessly, and the most powerful tool of divine dominion when used with understanding. Now I ask you, would you walk into a courtroom, stand before the judge, and say, "I am guilty," if you were innocent? Would you sign a document that read, "I forfeit all that is mine"? Then why do you sign, each day, declarations that assign you titles you do not wish to carry? I have seen people attempt to feel their way into abundance, using energy practices, affirmations, meditations, and yet nothing holds. Why? Because the mouth has not submitted. The tongue still speaks as a slave. The outer ritual is undone by the inner speech, and until the speech changes, the result cannot stabilize. I once had a woman write to me saying, "I've been doing everything, tithing, affirming, releasing, but I'm still stuck." I asked her to track her language for one day, just one. She returned and said, "I had no idea how many times I say I am stuck, I am behind, or I am always the one struggling." She wept as she said it, because she realized she had been commanding the very fate she was praying to escape. That is the tragic irony of modern spiritual life. People hope to ascend by feeling, but fall by speech. They think their intention is enough. It is not. Intention is energy, but only command is legal. When Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he was not expressing opinion. He was establishing identity. When God said, "I am that I am," he was not explaining. He was sealing the foundation of being itself. And when you say, "I am," you activate that same creative infrastructure, for good or for ill. You must come to terms with this. Your life is not responding to your effort. It is responding to your alignment. And alignment is measured in language. Your spiritual state is not revealed by your mood. It is revealed by your vocabulary. If you are not seeing results, examine your declarations. Not your vision board, not your morning journal, your spoken decrees. What is the actual name you have given yourself in secret? That is the only identity the law obeys. You say you want wealth, but do you speak as "I am supported"? You say you want love, but do you speak as "I am chosen"? You say you want healing, but do you speak as "I am restored by divine design"? Or do you still whisper in the silence, "I am not enough," and wonder why nothing arrives? Let me tell you, you can fast, tithe, pray, study, cleanse, and meditate. But if you do all of it while saying, "I am unworthy," the law will follow your word, not your ritual. I am not here to flatter you. I am here to give you structure. And the structure is this: whatever follows "I am" becomes law over your life. So speak not as the one in pain, but as the one who has already crossed over. Speak not as the beggar, but as the heir. Speak not as the one waiting, but as the one already in alignment. Not because you feel it, but because you understand how spiritual jurisdiction works. You cannot continue to pray one thing and name yourself another. You cannot carry the name of failure and walk into success. You cannot call yourself small and expect vastness to meet you. You must speak what you wish to embody. You must speak it until heaven recognizes your voice again, not as a victim, but as a vessel of divine authority. Because the law does not read your tears, it reads your tone. It does not scan your intentions, it scans your words. It does not follow your effort, it follows your name. And until that name changes, nothing else will. If you wait to feel like it's true before you speak it, you've already forfeited the law. The spiritual realm does not wait for visual confirmation. It waits for vocal alignment. Your words must arrive before the evidence. Your decree must precede your reward. That is the order of divine law. And when you reverse that order, when you say, "I'll believe it when I see it," you render your voice powerless, because in the world of spirit it is never seen before it is said. I once told a student, "Speak as if it is already done." She responded, "But it's not." And I said, "Not yet, but your words are the permission slip for it to arrive." You cannot hesitate at the door of your manifestation and expect it to swing open. The door is activated by declaration. You say it, not because it is visible, but because it is lawful. And only lawful speech brings lawful results. Let me say it plainly. The law does not need your situation to be perfect. It needs your word to be precise. It does not wait for your emotions to stabilize. It waits for your command. So stop asking, "But what if I don't believe it yet?" Speak it anyway. Speak it until belief is no longer required. Because law responds to alignment, not anxiety. It obeys structure, not struggle. Your speech is not a reflection. It is architecture. Every word you speak builds or breaks a spiritual framework around you. And when you say, "I am whole," even in sickness, you are not denying your condition. You are declaring your jurisdiction. You are telling the field of energy, "This is who I am under divine law, and all things must conform." That is not arrogance. That is obedience. You see, people confuse humility with hesitation. They think speaking boldly is prideful. But in truth, spiritual authority requires boldness. The timid voice does not move the law. The casual voice does not imprint the field. Heaven does not respond to the vague. It responds to the specific. When you say, "I am prosperous," and you say it with legal clarity, with divine ownership, the law goes to work. The how is none of your business. The who, the timing, the channel, all irrelevant. You spoke. Therefore it must become. There are those who pray fervently yet cancel their own miracle by speaking doubt in the next breath. They ask God for increase and then say, "I'm barely getting by." They visualize open doors but say, "Nothing ever works for me." And then they wonder why the breakthrough delays. It is not delayed, it is revoked by the very name they continue to speak. I tell you again, heaven is structured. The unseen does not move at random. There is a spiritual protocol, and that protocol is activated by your word. You say it once, you say it like it's final. You say it with the authority of someone who knows how law works. Not as a child asking permission, as a citizen issuing a legal claim under divine inheritance. When you speak as one who has, rather than one who hopes, you shift your vibration from waiting to commanding. And the moment you cross that line, your life begins to reconfigure. Not because of magic, because of structure. And let me add this, you must not only speak the name, you must protect it. Once you say, "I am favored," you do not contradict it later with jokes, apologies, or emotional outbursts. You seal it. You honor it. You live as if it were already so. Because it is. The law does not need proof. It needs proof of position. When you walk into a room and say, "I am worthy," everything in that room begins to orient around that name. Conversations shift. People take notice. Opportunities inch closer. Not because they've changed, but because your tone has. The universe hears you differently when you name yourself differently. But here's where most fail. They speak once, then watch nervously. They say, I am abundant, and then scan the room for confirmation. That is not spiritual mastery. That is performance anxiety. And the law does not honor anxiety. It honors structure. Speak and walk on. Declare and release. Name it and live as one who cannot be disproven. You are not waiting for life to agree with you. Life is waiting for you to stop negotiating with fear. When you say, I am, and you mean it with the force of divine identity, the world has no choice but to conform. That is the vibration of dominion. So I will say it again, and I want you to write it somewhere sacred. I do not speak to match what is. I speak to create what must be. You are not a reporter, you are a ruler, and your decree is what gives the invisible realm its instructions. If you cannot see it yet, that is all the more reason to say it now, because your words are not echoes. They are blueprints. They do not wait for confirmation. They issue the order, and the law with perfect precision follows. Let me tell you something most people are never taught. Not in church, not in school, and certainly not in everyday life. Your subconscious does not resist what you say. It does not debate you. It does not try to help you improve your self-image. It only records. And every time you say, I am, you are pressing the seal of identity into the wax of your subconscious mind. You are etching it into the invisible. You are giving your spirit an instruction so precise, so unarguable, that the rest of your being will obey, even to your detriment. This is why people suffer under false names. Not because they are being punished, but because the subconscious cannot refuse what is spoken with conviction. It does not say, she's just venting, or he didn't mean it. It says, understood, identity received, reality adjusting now. You may think, it's just a phrase. I didn't mean it literally. But the subconscious doesn't process sarcasm. It doesn't analyze tone. It reacts to structure. And I am is the most structured phrase in human language. It is not reflective. It is directive. The subconscious is the soil of your spirit. Whatever you plant there grows. But you do not plant with thought alone. You plant with declaration. And if you plant weeds by saying, I am stupid, I am cursed, I am behind, then the subconscious must grow exactly that. Not because you deserve it, but because you requested it. I have seen people trapped in cycles they didn't understand. Relationships that repeat, financial lack that lingers, opportunities that disappear. And when I examine their speech, I find the root. They have trained their subconscious to accept a false name. And once that name is accepted, everything else falls into formation around it. The great tragedy is that most people speak against themselves without knowing they're doing it. They think they're venting. They think they're being honest. But they are actually issuing instructions to the most powerful builder they have, the subconscious. And once that builder begins, it does not stop until the structure is complete. You may go to therapy, you may do inner work, you may meditate and read beautiful books, but if you keep saying, I am not good enough, your subconscious will discard all your healing and rebuild your prison. Because your words carry more weight than your wishes. I once had a client, intelligent, kind, spiritually hungry, who said to me, I've done everything, but every time I step into a new chapter, something crumbles. I asked her to list the phrases she repeats to herself in difficult moments. She paused and whispered, I always say, I ruin everything. There it was. Not a curse from the outside, a contract from within. And until that name is revoked, no amount of outer effort will cancel the inner order. Because identity, not effort, is what the law responds to. Now listen closely. The subconscious has no defense against repetition. It doesn't choose between what's true and what's false. It only multiplies what it hears again and again. This is why I tell my students, say it, say it, say it. Not because it's a mantra, but because it is instruction. The same way a general repeats the command to the troops until it becomes instinct, you must train your inner mind to obey a higher name. So if you want to change your life, do not just analyze your trauma. Change your title. Withdraw the old name and speak the new one, with such clarity, such consistency, that the subconscious must surrender. Say, I am safe until every cell obeys. Say, I am chosen until rejection cannot find you. Say, I am wealthy until your nervous system stops bracing for lack. You are not programming fantasy. You are replacing fraud, the fraud of false identity, the fraud of inherited curses, the fraud of cultural conditioning that told you who you were before you ever had a chance to name yourself. Children grow up hearing, you're too much, you're too sensitive, you'll never be like your brother, you're not leadership material. And they grow into adults who, without realizing it, still say, I am not meant for more. But I tell you, you are not who they said you were. You are who you say you are. And the law is waiting to hear the new verdict. So revoke it now. Revoke every name spoken over you in ignorance. Revoke every identity spoken in heartbreak. Revoke every false title you whispered under pressure. You do not have to believe fully yet, but you do have to speak it. Because speech is how the subconscious receives new law. You want to change your inner world? Then stop confessing the old one. The spirit moves where your tongue leads. Your speech is the gatekeeper of your transformation. Speak not from memory. Speak from divine identity. Speak the name you are always meant to carry. Speak it until your dreams recognize you. Speak it until your posture changes. Speak it until the field obeys. Because the subconscious doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, is this yours? And once you say, I am, it becomes so. You've heard the law, you've heard the structure, now it is time to act. I do not teach for inspiration, I teach for implementation. And if you walk away from this teaching having learned something, but done nothing, the law will not move. It does not honor insight, it honors command. And command is not internal. It must be spoken, it must be sealed. This is your instruction. Take a clean sheet of paper, not a discarded list, not the back of an envelope. A clean, untouched sheet. Because what you are about to write is not casual. It is contract, it is legal record in the unseen. On this paper, write 3 statements. Each must begin with I am. Each must name you under law, not as you've been labeled by others, not as you've felt, but as you are called to stand in divine jurisdiction. Write them with authority, write them with finality. I am aligned, I am provided for, I am under divine command. Or write your own, but make no apologies. Choose names that carry no hesitation. This is not journaling. This is declaration. This is the sealing of your spiritual identity by your own hand. Then, speak them aloud. Do not mumble. Do not test the air for resonance. Speak them as if your words are being inscribed in the foundation of your life, because they are. Speak them as if the court has already opened, and the judge waits only for your decree. Speak as one who understands that the voice is not a tool of feeling, it is a tool of jurisdiction. Repeat them, not endlessly, not anxiously, but ritually with rhythm and reverence. Say them in the morning. Say them when you move through transactions. Say them when you give, when you touch money, when fear stirs. Say them when your old name tries to reattach itself. Say them until forgetting is no longer an option. Because it is not enough to write the name. You must live the name. And to live it, you must protect it. I've seen this error far too often. A student will write a powerful decree. She will say, "I am favored." But then, when the phone doesn't ring, when the inbox stays quiet, she whispers, "Maybe I was wrong." And in that moment she revokes the ruling. Not intentionally, but effectively. Because once a name has been spoken, it must be upheld in posture, in expectation, in silence. If not, the field will follow the contradiction, not the original claim. You do not speak once and wait nervously. That is not how law responds. You speak and walk on. You speak and act as one who has been stamped. You speak and refuse to look back. The moment you speak your true name, the old self begins to dissolve. But if you revisit it, entertain it, try it on again like a costume, you reactivate what you claim to cancel. So protect your new name. Shield it from mockery. Remove it from the court of public opinion. Do not explain it to people who still call themselves broken. Do not expect agreement from those who have never stood under law. This is not a slogan. This is a spiritual ruling. And rulings are not up for debate. You say, "I am chosen," then walk through the world like the chosen. Not arrogantly, but legally. With calmness, with precision, with detachment from outcome and loyalty to identity. You say, "I am whole," then stop rehearsing the wounds. You say, "I am under divine provision," then stop scanning the room for lack. Do not measure your name by your bank account. Do not verify your title by your social circle. Do not check your reflection for proof. You are not performing. You are establishing. Your name is not subject to feedback. It is a command. This is why I insist. Say it. Write it. Stand in it. Let the tone in your voice train your nervous system to believe before your eyes can. Let your spine carry the weight of it before your circumstances echo it. Let the field conform, not because you pushed, but because you named. And yes, some part of you will tremble. That is natural. The old self will resist. The old contracts will rise up to be renegotiated. But you must not entertain them. You are no longer in dialogue with the past. You are no longer obligated to that identity. The only question now is, will you keep your word? Because the law will. The moment you said "I am," it was done. The moment you spoke the new name, the old one began to die. And heaven, in perfect structure, began to rearrange. So let me say it plainly. You are not waiting for your new life. Your new life is waiting for you to stop speaking the old name. Write the new name. Say the new name, and live as if it cannot be undone. Because if spoken rightly under law, it cannot.